Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Nick and Joe Show. I'm Nick. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Why did I just say that? I'm Joe. He's Nick.
You want to be me?
I'm Joe. He's Nick. You're listening to the Nick and Joe Show, live from the Think Radio Broadcast Center in the nation's capital. That would be Ottawa, Canada, where we're in the middle of, well, the start apparently of a deep freeze, where records are being set for low temperatures across the country. Thank goodness for global warming. That's all I could say.
If I ever get my hands on David Suzuki, I'm going to grab him by the lapels, lift him till his feet are off the floor, and demand my global warming. He promised it. I want it, and I'm not putting him down till I get it.
So we're going through some of the stories that have been out there this week, and here is one that we just could not touch. A family in Okotoks.
I'm trying to find out where that is.
I think it's in Alberta, if my memory serves me correctly. It's either Alberta or it's Saskatchewan, or one of the two. So, they've had a lot of snow lately, and they decided to build a sliding hill, rather than taking the kids out, I guess, in the middle of the COVID crisis where, you're supposed to be staying at home. So this family decides to stay at home, and we're going to build a toboggan hill in our backyard. So they, shovel the snow. They make a nice pile, etc.
Yeah, they show some shots of it in the story here. It's really a cool-looking hill.
And the kids are having a lovely time, as kids will, on their toboggans or sleighs or flying saucers, we used to call those little round things. Okay,
flying suicide discs.
Okay. Oh, boy. If you had a tailbone after a day going sledding and one of those things, you were a tough character.
You got that right.
But so it's a lovely time, and the kids are having a wonderful time. And then I don't know whether somebody complained or not, or they said there might be some dangers. So when the family was not looking, whether they were out or they were in their house or whatever they was, along come officials from the local government, and they demolished the hill. Now, this is wrong on so many levels, Nick. So many levels. The first one, I'm not even going to get into the private property thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay? But the kids, that's where I want to start with this, is these are children who are having fun sliding down a hill in their backyard where it's safe, okay? They're not sliding out onto the road. They're not going down a 200-foot hill onto a frozen lake or river or whatever somewhere.
Would work for me.
Okay. Well, and all that kind of stuff worked for me as well.
Yeah.
But this is so nice for them. It's healthy. They're outdoors. They're enjoying the winter time. What a lovely time. And I just can't shake how heartbroken those children are with the fact that the government has sent people to come and just to tear their snow hill down because it's too, quote-unquote, dangerous.
Well, according to the story, someone said it was unsafe, and they were citing COVID. It wasn't that it was physically unsafe. It's that these kids weren't respecting the COVID protocols or something along that line. I read it earlier. But
how do you have a COVID protocol in a family living in the same house?
Well, first of all, whose business is it if a family builds on their own property for their own kids? It's not like they had the whole school come over, which I would have supported, and slide down this hill, okay? Because it's 10 feet high, so it's not that big. It's got a nice little ramp on it. The tree that Grinch stole from Christmas was planted on this thing, and they called it Mount Crumpet. They had a lot of fun with this thing. When they came back, all there was left was a few boulders of snow pushed up against the stairs. They'd come in with a bobcat or some kind of piece of machinery and just completely remove the whole hill, snow and all. They didn't just make it unusable. They took all the snow away. Now, look, You don't want kids going to school because they might get COVID. You don't want kids going to playgrounds because you might get COVID. You don't want kids, no road hockey, no pond hockey. What do you want them to do? they supposed to sit in their house, get fat, get childhood diabetes from eating too much pop and chips while they play their Xbox? Is that what you want?
At the same time that you're telling parents not to let your children spend so much time on the computers playing video games.
Contradictory messaging.
I know, it's crazy.
And this stuff now. First of all, when I saw this, I hit the roof because this is private property. The municipality, and I don't care where it is, does not have the legal authority to come onto somebody else's private property without a warrant, without reasonable grounds. They have to have a warrant to do this. No warrant. Their family wasn't even home. They just came in and said, "Oh, nobody looking," and took it. That's a violation of one of the very founding principles of our democracy, and that is the right to own and use private property.
And it's again, we're coming down to it used to be, and not an extremist position. It used to be that a man's home
was his castle.
Or, call it a man and a woman then, okay? I want to be inclusive. Okay? Their home is their castle. It's the family home. And the state does not have the unadulterated, unrestricted right to invade that home, to impose whatever rules they want on that family. So my answer, I don't care whether it was somebody was concerned about the safety of the children. I'm not the least bit concerned about the safety of the children. Okay? Go out. Go out there and slide to your heart's content.
Okay,
you're not going to get hurt. Okay? And if you got hurt, what's hurt going to be? You break an arm? You sprain a wrist? Okay? I mean, that's what tobogganing is.
That's what growing up is all about.
Okay. So, it toughens you up a little bit. I don't want to sound cavalier, but that's the reality of the situation. But apart from that, even if there was some kind of a safety concern, even if COVID was a legitimate issue, you can't just send the Marines in, okay, or the Special Forces in to demolish that hill. And I put to you, Nick, again, if it's the COVID-19 business, how does that prevent you from transmitting from one family member to the next this virus? Okay,
you know what this is?
We don't want them tobogganing because it's dangerous because of COVID-19. What's the next step? Are you going to have some sort of an ankle bracelet on the kids and the parents to make sure that they don't hug? And that the parents aren't going to give their kids a goodnight kiss? Well, it's so maddening.
What this is a symptom of a nation filled with snitches. What business is it of the neighbors? Why did they feel compelled to rat them out on something when there was nothing nefarious going on? This isn't the only case. Well, this is the first case where they've come in that I know of and absolutely removed what is ostensibly private property. That snow was on their land. That makes it their snow.
Sure.
Like when the rain falls on your property, that's your water.
Sure.
Until it leaves your property. Okay? So they got no right to that stuff. There have been examples of how they've destroyed or damaged property, like a skating rink, throwing sand and salt on it so they can't use it. There's examples of that, but this is the first time. So what compelled somebody to pick up the phone and lodge that complaint? I tell you there's two reasons. One, we have a snitch mentality, and two, it's out of fear. Now, that's not a new revelation for me by any stretch. I've mentioned that before. People are living in fear and doing and acting in ways that they would normally never even consider, all because they are afraid. I might get COVID because of your actions. It's like going into a shopping mall where everybody's wearing a mask but you. You're not a threat to anybody. But you got to have that mask on because you're a threat. No, I'm not.
Well, again, I would stress that personally speaking, I'm not an anti-masker. I don't see the benefit. I don't see a great benefit to it, but I see some benefit to it. But taking your theory, your explanation, all right, at its face value, I would submit to you that it is completely irrelevant to anybody else if fear is the factor here. Completely irrelevant whether this family gets COVID or not, or spreads it within the confines of their four walls.
Not the way they look at it.
Okay. So where is the fear? I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying that people aren't driven by fear. But what I am saying is that even if that's the explanation, okay, the actions of snitching on your neighbors for what they're doing between themselves in the privacy of their own home, and their backyard is part of their home. Let's be clear about that.
Of course it is.
Okay. It doesn't fit. It's not logical.
Well,
because there's no possible interaction between them.
What we need to understand is that since the very beginning of this, rationality was the first casualty. It's just like truth is the first casualty at war. Rationality under these circumstances is the first casualty because you can't speak to people rationally. They get emotional. And you cannot deal with emotions with rational thought, logic, and reason. The emotion is going to overwhelm you every time. And you can't deal with someone who's so fear anger. You know what I mean? Like they get so wound up. They get so angry because they're afraid. It's a reactionary issue. It's not a logical one. It's not one that comes from their intellect. It comes from their fight or flight mentality. And they simply launch at you because you're threatening what they believe, and you pose a threat to them because they think that if you don't think like they do, then you clearly don't care about them and you want them to die. I'm really kind of stretching this out here, but the bottom line is fear is propelling this because people fear their own mortality. They don't want to get sick. Who wants to? But you don't solve it. You do not solve it by taking away a little mound of snow on somebody's property that's only 10 feet high, that the kids are having some fun on. Heck, I pile snow up in my yard that high when I plow the driveway. My grandkids come over and slide on it all the time. We got hills for that. There's a little ridge in my place. The kids grab the toboggan and whoosh down they go, and I hope they don't hit a tree on the way down. Now, they're not going that fast, but, they're not reckless. But if they do, okay, well, we'll kiss the bobo better, and they'll be fine. And that's just what life childhood's all about, learning what'll hurt you and what won't before, it gets to be, you start doing things that could be fatal if you hit them. That's why kids are short, and they're made of rubber. Anyway, so, yeah, I just was so angry when I read that.
Yeah.
It just boils my blood.
Nick, I'm not entirely sure. Again, as I think about it more carefully, I don't think it's fear at all. I think that there's an element of people out there that just want to be in charge. They just want to give you orders.
Well, there's that.
And it's not even necessarily driven by fear. I'll grant you that there are people out there that are acting irrationally out of an irrational fear. I'll grant that. But in a case like this, I'm not sure that that's what's driving it. I think that there are busybodies out there that just they feel, the minute the government, what's the word I'm looking